Alright folks, hello again, welcome back to my channel, and a slight departure from the norm, even though I have been known to briefly talk about these topics in the past. Now if you've followed the channel for a while, you know it's about woodworking, it's about disability woodworking, it's about trying to overcome challenges at times. But I am popping this video out with no script. It's completely off the top of my head because I do believe there's some issues I'd like to talk about relating some recent experiences that may be of benefit to some people, and if they are, it's well worth doing the video. If they're not, then people will just skip it and then go on to the next one. And the title is fundamentally about self-care, about taking care of yourself, both in a sense of your physical health but also in your mental health as well. Now, I'm sure not many people would have noticed, but I'd taken a break from YouTube for a little while. I haven't posted anything for the best part of a month because I recognised the area of self-care. I needed to take care of myself. There were some issues, both in a physical sense, that was having a knock-on effect with my mental health, and it's really important for me to address them, like it should be for you to address them as well. Now here's the little disclaimer bit before I pop anything else out there, is I am only relating my personal experiences in regards to physical disability and mental health as well. If you literally just joined the channel because you've seen the title in this video and found it possibly appealing, I live with chronic pain issue called, chronic neuropathic pain, complex regional pain syndrome, fundamentally from nerve damage. I lost the use of my right arm and hand. And I also live with conditions like complex post-traumatic stress disorder, mixed anxiety and depression disorder as well. So I'm only speaking from my experiences. I'm not here to give advice, really, or maybe there will be a little advice in this video, but don't take my advice as gospel. All right? I am not a trained medical professional. I'm not a psychologist. I'm not a therapist. I'm just a person who lives this walk of life. So if you do relate to any of this content, then it's really important that you engage with a relevant professional in that field and not just taking some rando off YouTube's word for it. All right, so there's the disclaimer bit out the way. And yeah, so it's fundamentally about this term self-care, about taking care of yourself. And recently I was suffering some physical health conditions that was starting to worry me a little bit. And when you start to fester in that worry, if your brain is slightly wired around an anxiety condition or a depression condition, or a condition like post-traumatic stress disorder, then I like the term what therapists use. It can have a tendency to catastrophize things. So something that might be a little niggle can all of a sudden just blow up in your mind as something life-threatening and chronic. And I think we're all guilty of that kind of thing at times. Or the flip side is we completely ignore things. So the grey area in the middle is not for the many but for the few. But sometimes we can really catastrophize and take something that's relatively simple to sort out and make it into a big thing, or we can ignore it. Both are probably equally as bad as the other. And I think what the issues I was suffering was side effects from a medication I was taking, and also from the spinal cord stimulator implant that I underwent last year. And I won't go into what that is because I think I've got 3 or 4 videos on my channel about that. So if you want to know more about SCS, spinal cord stimulators, spinal cord implants, check out those videos. But yeah, and it was having kind of these unpleasant physical effects on me that was having a knock-on negative effect on my mental health. And I was trying my best to ignore things, very dangerous thing to do. And then I went from 0 to 100 and started catastrophizing things. So where did I go wrong in that sense was I didn't engage with the professionals, the medical people, the doctors early enough. And by that point, my mind was in a spiral, a downward spiral, and I was starting to overthink, over worry about things. Hence me taking a little step back from everything, not just from YouTube, from everything that was going on in my life, and to focus on myself. Now, it's quite even now, this far down the line since all this happened, which is 6.5 years or something like that, for me to actually say focusing on myself is still quite an alien thing for me to say, because for the overwhelming majority of my life, I always put other people before myself. My profession, I was a school teacher, and you always put the needs of others ahead of yourself, particularly if you're in that profession, and any teachers watching this will know exactly what I'm on about. So to say you're prioritizing yourself is still quite an alien concept for me, but it's something I am getting used to because I'm going to have to, because living your life as a disabled person, you have to put yourself first. Otherwise, you run the risk of creating further problems for yourself, both in the current time and down the line as well. Conscious that I'm waffling about this, but please bear with me. So taking a step back from everything, engaging with the medical people allowed me to focus on the importance of my self-care, all right, in regards to my physical and my mental health, going back to the beginning part of this video. And that's what I've kind of been focusing on for the last, probably been about the last 4, 5 or 6 weeks. And that's good for me because it's put me in a much better place. We seem to have got to the bottom of the issues that I was having. And we are now in the process of trying to manage those better in terms of changes of medication, in terms of adjustments to the spinal cord implant, so I can still gain the benefits from them, but without the particularly unpleasant side effects. I won't go into too much detail about them, but just to give you a brief overview, I was suffering prolonged, dull headaches, which weren't, I've never suffered headaches in my life, but they weren't particularly nasty in the sense, but they were persistent and they were constant and they were kind of draining me a little bit. I was suffering palpitations and heart flutters and stuff at night, which I was dismissing as anxiety. It turns out it wasn't. It was side effects of medication. And other stuff as well, which I won't go into too much, but it was having a very negative impact on me as a person, and also it was affecting my sleep. All right, now I have a thing, again, this is not a psychologist thing, it's not a medical people thing, but I have this kind of, I talk a little bit about the holy triangle of these three things in life. So the importance of sleep, your mental health, and your ability to function in life. So whether you're a woodworker, whether you're a teacher, whether you're a plumber, whatever field that you work in. And if you have a negative part of that, any of those three in your life, then it will have a negative and knock-on effect on the other two. For an example, so if you're having problems with your sleep, so for whatever reason you can't get to sleep, things are playing on your mind, you've got a physical health condition, so you're in pain. So a lack of sleep will affect negatively your mental health, and it will affect your ability to function in life. All right, it's quite simple, that, isn't it? If you're having a negative, what I call a wobble, you're having a bit of an issue in regards, wobble's a short-term thing, I describe. If you're having an issue with your mental health, then it affects your ability to function in life, and it affects your sleep. If for whatever reason you are having difficulties functioning within your job, within life, within your family, within your friends, that can have a knock-on effect on your sleep, and it can have a knock-on effect on your mental health. So have a little think about that one, and do you fall into the realms of any of those three? So why have I decided to do this video? It's only really to put out to you about taking good care of yourself in a physical sense and in a mental health sense as well, because I feel in a better position now. It's the first time I've brought myself back in front of the camera in over a month, because I needed that break, and also I didn't feel confident enough in myself to be able to produce any content. I've got loads of ideas in here, but I'd suffered a bit of a knockback, a setback in my self-confidence. Go back to the start of the channel if you've been here since the beginning, and I know plenty of you have. You will know about the issues I've talked about in regards to how much things like the accident affected me, from a self-belief, a self-confidence perspective. So yeah, I had that kind of setback, and I'm easing myself back in to both the workshop in terms of production, but also in terms of putting myself back in front of the camera. It sounds a bit silly, doesn't it? 5 years on, over 200 videos and stuff, and I felt like I'd completely lost my bottle in terms of getting in front of here and speaking again and filming in here again. So yeah, but why I'm doing this is to put to you that if you are experiencing negative thoughts, emotions, low mood, those kind of things, I can't stress enough the importance of acknowledging that, for starters, and doing something about that in terms of engaging with a professional. Now, this video is about the importance of self-care in a physical sense and a mental health sense as well. And let's use the physical self-care health as an example, because if you, say for example, you rolled your ankle, you sprained your ankle, it might involve a day or two with your foot elevated, some ice on it, light duties, and it starts to ease up and you feel a bit better about things and you get on with your life. Fantastic, no problem. But what if you've rolled your ankle and you've actually snapped some ligaments, and you try a little light duties for a day and you just crack on with life, and instead of things start to progressively get worse, and you ignore them and you carry on and you're in pain and you load it with painkillers and you do all the things to just keep going because that's what you've got to do, because you can't take time off, because all those kind of things. And before you know it, your ankle has gone from a bad situation to a severe situation. So by the time you engage with a medical professional, be that your doctor or via accident and emergency, you've got a real problem with your ankle now. And instead of it being probably a couple of weeks to rectify, could be several months. Now we are, as a society, although things are meant to be getting better, and maybe they are, we are still extremely guilty of ignoring trigger points, warning signs, however you want to call them, in regards to poor mental health. Because as society was for many, many years, and probably still is now, but it's trying to get better, is you ignore the warning signs and you crack on because that's what you've got to do. And I'm trying to think of the best way to explain this. If you engage professionally with someone in the early signs of poor mental health, so again I talked about, you know, the low mood, you know, not, you know, the physical thing, the symptoms, not sleeping, not engaging with other people, withdrawing yourself, those kind of things. If you engage early on, it's much better for yourself, and it's much better for everybody, including the professionals, to engage with you early on, to then capture those negative parts of your mental health, engage with you, and guide you back towards where you'd like to be. If you ignore those warning signs for continued periods of time, and you just crack on because that's what we've got to do, and it engages into that poor mental health, then starts to affect the things I was talking about before. I'm not being religious when I say the Holy Trinity, but it affects your sleep, it affects your ability to function in life. If you continue to ignore them, you're only making these things for yourself worse in the long term. Because my experiences of engaging with my poor mental health was my partner making an appointment for the doctors because she'd seen enough. And when I initially went into the doctors and he said, let's forget about your shoulder, let's forget about your arm for a minute, how are you actually feeling? And I just burst into tears. And I couldn't communicate with the doctor. And that's how bad things had gotten. And the only thing I could do is, he said, are you prepared to engage with some help? Would you like some help with it? And I just nodded my head. And that set me on a journey over 5 years ago now, in regards to treatment for the conditions I was later diagnosed with, say, which was the complex PTSD, mixed anxiety and depression. Am I still guilty of ignoring some warning signs? Yes, I am. And maybe that's why I'm making this video. You know, do as I say, not as I do. But am I better now at picking up those warning signs and doing something about it? Yes, I am. Hence me disappearing off the face of YouTube for a month, because I needed to. And by doing that, it's made me feel better about where I'm at in my head, in my mind, physically, mentally, which allows me to engage back in my virtual world of YouTube and social media, and in my physical world of my workshop, where I'm currently making a door for someone, and I'm making some rather large bespoke chopping boards, and I've got a big commission coming up as well. So think about these things, folks. You know, it's vital that you do. And if any of this has resonated with you at any point, even in a slightly minuscule fashion, then, you know, think about what I've said. You know, maybe talk to your nearest and dearest, which is probably the most difficult thing to do. I found, and this is only my experience, opening up to what in effect were strangers to me, therapists, psychotherapists, you know, medical professionals, I found probably easier, because with your loved ones, you are probably acutely aware of the crosses that they bear in life for themselves, and you don't want to pile on additional hardship onto them. But, you know, they are your loved ones for a reason, and they will continue to be, even after you've maybe opened up about difficulties you're experiencing, and then look at maybe seeking medical professional help, shall we say. I am conscious this is a ramble. I am not going to apologise for it. But think about it, do you need to maybe take a little step back and focus on yourself for a little while? Whether that be your physical health, whether that be your mental health, because it's really that the importance of that self-care cannot be overemphasized or emphasized enough. And I think I'll probably leave it at there. All right. Thank you for your continued support. You know, people who've joined recently, people who've been with me since the very beginning when I could produce content, but I had no self-confidence or belief to speak or to step in front of a camera. So to do this today and to open up about deeply personal matters is a sign of maybe where I've come from and maybe where I think I can help others with that. Hope that makes sense. Okay, folks, as ever, you know, take care, take good care of yourselves, and I'll see you soon. Thanks for watching.